it's hard.
Right.
To where like 6 months later,
And
they're
then
like,
it's
I got this. Like,
it.
I love doing this. Like, Ariel, let me share with you this, and that. Like,
Right.
90+% of everything that you're wearing, everything that you have in your homes, that you see on the shelves in the stores, was delivered by a truck driver.
How do you feel about leading us, and what is the key success, and what is the tips that you use to lead the team in the best way?
I'm only 28, but they make me feel like I'm like 50 sometimes.
That's funny.
They keep me young, they keep me hip, they keep me in the know.
Energy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Inspires Me podcast series. I'm your host, Christine Trung, and if you are new here, we introduce and empower women perspective from Millennial and Gen Z. We deliver high-quality visualized podcasts with successful women from diverse backgrounds to reveal their own story and learn from it. We deliver fresh and inclusive thinking about women for Gen Z. In She Inspired Me, we want you to conquer the world in a better way. So we're finally coming back to the She Inspired Me studio here in Denton, Texas. And of course, we have another special guest. She is an expert in sales and operation area. Introducing Ariel Chadwich.
Hi.
Yay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
So before we jump into our conversation, could you please share for us about who you are and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm a sales operations manager at Schneider Logistics in Dallas. We're a brokerage logistics firm. I grew up in Flymont, Texas, graduated from the University of Memphis, never envisioned starting a career in logistics or sales. I kind of just stumbled into it. I've been at the company for 4 years, been through an internship there, was a sales associate there for 3 years, and then now I lead a team of about 15 associates, and I help them just kind of build their sales acumen and skills. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
That's super cool. Thank you so much for spending time and joining the show today.
Yeah,
so the reason why I know Ariel is because we have another mutual friend, and her name is Kylie. Kylie's also worked for Schneider, and she's such a great and empathetic and wonderful woman as well. So that's why we have her today, and I believe that with her energy, with her fresh and inclusive perspective, she's going to bring a lot of value for our episode today, and I hope that you guys are going to love it. So I'm curious. I know that after COVID-19 hit, and then we have a lot of things coming up with supply chain and logistics, and then how can you end up with working in Schneider? Like, what is the reason why you end up in this industry?
So it's actually really funny. I definitely think it was fate. So whenever I was in college, I got a degree in hospitality management. So it's typically like tourism, restaurant industry. It's all I knew because I worked in restaurants. I've had a job ever since I was 16. I've always been working. And so I was in Memphis, and my grandfather at the time actually had cancer, stage 4 cancer. And so I was like, I want to find something to get me back home for the summer. And at that point, I was like, I don't care what I do an internship in, because my job at the time counted towards my major and my internship credit, so that I could take an internship doing something else that I had never done before. And at the time, I had a mutual friend that worked for Schneider. And it was a sales position. It was going to get me back home to Dallas. And so I ended up interviewing, was found successful, and I ended up finding out that I was accepted to the internship the day my grandfather passed. But I was like, you know what, I think this is fate. Like, I had wanted to come back home to be with him for the summer, but this is another chance for me to get back home. And during that internship, I learned about an industry that I had never thought of before. When I saw big trucks on the side of the road, I was like, I just don't want to be near them when I'm driving. I didn't really know that they are literally the driving force for all supply chains. Like 90+% of everything that you're wearing, everything that you have in your homes, that you see on the shelves in the stores, was delivered by a truck driver. And so it's still the main mode of transportation within the US. It's so vital. And I think my internship, I highly encourage internships if you can do it while you're in school. It's kind of dipping your toe in an industry or within a job that you're not super maybe up to speed about, and then there's no commitment really. So an internship's like a small little test trial.
Yeah.
And so if you're in college, I highly suggest you do it freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year.
Right.
Try all these different internships to figure out what you like. But I saw how essential transportation is, how pivotal it is to supply chains. And it's almost like the medical industry. Like it is an essential industry. It's never going away. It drives our economy. There's always a need. And I saw how it kind of like the gears work together to be a driving force within the economy. And I was like, I'm hooked. I was like, I'm really interested. And so after my internship, our VP, Adrian, gracefully offered me a full-time position. So I went back to school, had a semester left and already had a job secured. And yeah, that's kind of how I just started my journey. So definitely fate, but I look back now and I'm like, I was meant to be here 100%.
Right. Oh my God, that's a great story to share about.
Yeah.
And I believe that somehow something happened to us, like a fate that teaches us about something or lead us towards something that maybe not the thing that we think about before, but then it's end up working so well together, and it's helped us find our life passion. So you're not the only one that's sharing with us that you have different background and then you end up in another industry, because I've been knowing that most of the guests that we're having right now, they all majoring in something else.
Yeah.
For example, like the last guest that we're having, she is in marketing and branding right now, but back then she was in engineering.
Right.
And then the guest before that is also the same thing with Divina from Beniki. But I also believe that like all of the leaders, like the executive level, they definitely want some other people that have different perspective, like they have different background. And then when you jump into the job and you use that soft skill that you having from that background, then you can apply for the role that you're doing right now.
For sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's an amazing story. And yeah, I also believe that logistics and supply chain is very demanding.
Yes.
And it's always going to be a very important part in our life, no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's a very hard field to follow. If you don't know what you're doing, what are your major, you can take a look about this field, because I think it's very demanding.
Yeah, I think too, like whenever you're in college, like whenever I was going into college and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just know I didn't want to be undecided. So I started off as a nursing major. And found out really quickly that I wasn't cut out for that. So all the nursing majors out there,
I was majoring in pre-med as well.
It sounds like a great idea until you get into it and you're like, wow, this is a lot.
This is not for me.
Yeah. And then I kind of dabbled around in other majors. I changed my major 4 times. So it's okay if you change your major. And then I ultimately chose the major that had to do, this is actually pretty funny. I chose the major that had to do with the least amount of math. I was like, I don't like math. I just want a 4-year degree that has nothing to do with math. And it's funny because now I'm in a role to where I'm surrounded by numbers all the time.
Right.
I look at spreadsheets numbers, all the time.
Excel.
Lots of math. So it's funny how things ended up. But every skill you can acquire and you can learn.
Right.
You just have to be, we talked about adaptability. You have to be adaptable. You have to be proactive, and every skill that I have mastered or built over the years, I started out with not having any idea.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
so we're going to change a little bit about the flow that we're doing for the previous episode. So could you please share for us about three keywords about yourself?
Yeah, I mentioned them a little bit ago. So I'm a very adaptable individual. I think in life you have to adapt to different circumstances, situations, changes, and being welcoming or inviting that change. It's a learning experience. Every single chance opportunity is a learning experience, and you become stronger, you feel more confident, especially in like an industry or a role that you're in. The more adaptability and opportunity to adapt to a situation you're exposed to, the more you grow. So I would say I'm very adaptable to any and all situations. I kind of just like morph into like that situation best I can. I'm also very proactive. Anybody that knows me knows that I am super proactive. Like you give me direction, I run with it. Like I don't need any like pep talk or motivation for the most part. Like I am very proactive, and being in sales, you have to be proactive. It's a very proactive role and job and industry. So if I know that I can do something well, or if I fully understand the task at hand, like I'm very proactive, as well as like I would call myself a very creative individual. And so just being creative in the way that you approach situations, as well as tackle a problem, I find myself very creative in that space because there's not one way to do something.
So I think the thing that you just mentioned about creativity, it somehow remind me about innovation.
Yeah, very innovative.
In the very rapidly changing world outside over there, how can you balance between your innovation and your adaptability?
So I think there's a healthy balance there. I definitely, I'm a very independent person, but I definitely like to bounce ideas off of coworkers as well as like peers and mentors. Just because when we think about innovation, and especially with the younger generation, I think there's a lot of value that the younger generation brings in terms of innovation, the way that they think about things, the way that they do things. And I think there's definitely something that like someone of my age can learn from them. But I think there's like a healthy balance of being able to incorporate both. It's not one way or the other. It's like, hey, how can we be in front of innovation, but also be creative and adaptable at the same time and combine forces to kind of tackle the problem. So I would say in regards to my role, my associates teach me new things every single day. In terms of innovation, I'm still kind of teaching them the ropes in regards to what they're going to be doing, but like they bring innovative ideas to me all the time to where I'm like, I love that. Let's run with it. I'm going to give you an opportunity since this is your idea and you're the brainchild of this. Like, I really want to give you an opportunity. Like, I want you to share this with the team on Tuesday in our morning meeting. Like, I would like you to share. It gives them a piece of ownership too of like, one, like that confidence of like, I'm doing something right. I'm getting like feedback from my leader, but then also like, I'm going to share with my peers. Because I think like there's power in the numbers, especially if there's a peer that's learned something that's made a great outcome or made them successful in a certain area. I want them to share that with those peers and give them that sense of ownership of like, I can do this. I have the confidence to be able to share with my peers.
Right. Oh my God, your teammate must love you so much because it seems like you really know what you're doing with like how you define your leadership at work. See, I believe that it's really hard. Like for us as a Gen Z or as a young generation, whenever we jump into any team, we also want to make sure that if that's the right environment that we want to work with, and if that's the leader that we want to work with, someone who will see our value and who willing to push ourselves up and see our potential. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I know that logistics and supply chain is for such a very demanding field right now. So in a very rapidly evolving logistic industry right now, how can you keep up to date with all the change that's coming up?
So Schneider, I can speak on Schneider's behalf. Schneider's invested a lot of money in a lot of different ways to, one, be innovative, but two, be on the forefront of the technology push within our current industry. So we have invested millions of dollars into state-of-the-art technology to help, one, provide the most accurate service, but then as well as accurate data to be able to provide to our customers, but also use to our advantage.
Data is very important.
Sure. So for Schneider, we have a freight power shipper portal. And what it is it's basically like a self-help portal. So when you think about someone that I oversee, they are the main point of contact for the customer. But Monday through Friday, they have that main point of contact. But like on the weekends and stuff like that, they might not be able to reach out to that individual. So we have a self-help portal where they can log in 24/7. As many people from their company can log on. They can quote, book, and track in real live time. I tell customers all the time, it's like the Domino's pizza tracker, but like for their shipments, just like for Amazon, like it shows you like where it's at all times. We live in an instantaneous society to where like we want our things and we want it now. And so Schneider's invested a lot of money in giving customers that visibility to their shipments. There's nothing worse than like, for example, if you're shipping something in the mail and like you don't know where it is, you don't know when you're getting it, it's taking too long. We definitely want to bridge that gap. And so we've invested a lot of money there in that portal, which we get a lot of feedback from customers that they love it, but also just more accurate data to where we can, KPIs, key performance indicators, are big for any business. Key performance indicators are essentially what's important to their supply chain, to their transportation department, and what they're essentially prioritizing in terms of. So it could be like on-time delivery. It could be on-time pickup. It could be tender rejections. So like if they send us an order, they grade us on how often we accept and how often we reject an order.
Yeah.
All those things are really important to be able to measure on our end and then provide accurate data back to them. Because in transportation, both entities are essentially like grading one another. So like the customer is being graded by the provider in regards to like adaptability, communication, visibility, as well as KPIs. And then it's the other way around as well, to where as the provider, you're also doing the same thing. And I think being able to have data sets on both sides to show the other side is really important in one, creating your narrative and your story to the customer, instead of letting the customer or the provider make that narrative for you. And so Schneider has really invested in a lot of money and prioritizes really accurate data sets so that we can supply it to stakeholders as well as customers, just so they have that confidence of like, this is the provider that you're working with, this is all accurate data, we are taking this seriously and we value your business. And so it kind of just gives the customer the reassurance that like they're partnering with a strong provider that has all those capabilities.
So talking about Schneider, back then I used to interest in Schneider, and we have an interview. I did have an interview with Schneider for my internship, and then when I researching about Schneider, I realized that Schneider is one of the top company that really promoting women leadership. So how can you define yourself as a leader at work, and what is the traits, what is the personality that you think that you saw yourself different from other leaders?
So I love this question because in a male-dominated industry, specifically sales and transportation, it's something that like you think about to where it's like, okay, like I know there is potentially like an imbalance within the workforce, but being in a male-dominated industry and working for a company like Schneider that really does prioritize up-and-coming leaders and mentoring them and making them a priority really spoke a lot to me. So whenever I was going through the transition of moving from a sales associate to a manager, it was a really big initiative for them. Like, we want more women sales leader. I think it also helps with like diversity and inclusion. I think that women have a lot of skill sets that are very beneficial within an organization. If you think about it, we are very empathetic, very understanding. And I think when you're managing people, managing people is hard, I will tell you. But like, you're very empathetic, very understanding, as well as you're very creative. You think about things differently. So the value that women bring to the workforce, I think it's really important to promote female leaders. Schneider's really big on that. I've always had really great female mentors. Shout out to you guys. But also within Schneider, they even take a stance where they have like women panels. We go to women in trucking conferences. Like, they make it such a big priority to where it truly is part of a fiber of their being that they really do care about up and coming leaders. And it just gives you the confidence to know that like, you, just as much as anybody else, deserve a seat at the table. And it also is like really great. So like, whenever I was in sales, I was on a sales team of all guys. My leader was a guy, and I was on a sales team of all guys. And that could be intimidating for a girl, a new seller coming in. And when I first started out, when I joined the new team, I was at the bottom of the totem pole of the team in terms of like metrics. And I hated being at the bottom. And I was like, the best way to show that like I deserve to be here and that I deserve a seat at the table is to show them in my work ethic and my output, as well as my collaboration efforts and all of those things. Like, I wanted my work to speak for itself. And I slowly climbed my way up to where like towards the end of my time on that team, I was in the upper half. I had other guys on the team coming to me asking questions about certain niche specialties or industries that I was really strong in. And it was a really great feeling. And so I think that scenario really kind of catapulted me into like, I can do anything. I can literally do anything. I am just as capable and just as powerful of any of these other men in the industry. And I don't think of it as like conquering the men in the industry, but like, I do think that like I deserve a seat at the table just with all of them, and I can bring so much value to the initiatives that the company is trying to execute just as much as them. And I think it's a value add to have women in the room sitting at the table as well. And so that's just kind of been my mindset the whole time, is that like, I deserve to be here and I'll show you why through my work efforts. So.
Wow, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
After I listened to your answer, and I realized that you're such a very resilient leader that I can tell. So I have another question for you, because our audience are Gen Z. So I know that we're very lucky because we were born in a newer generation where we have an advanced technology and everything is very reachable, like as long as we want to do something, and there's always resources to figure things out. And that's why I can realize that there's a little bit lost balance to lead team like us. And I know that you're leading a team with younger generation, with Gen Z right now. So how do you feel about leading them? How do you feel about leading us? And what is the key success, and what are the tips that you use to lead the team in the best way?
So I think for my coaching style, I'm very big from like seeking to understand. So I always seek to understand from the individual. I don't have a blanket coaching perspective. I coach everybody differently based on the seeking to understand it first, and then just understanding where they need additional help. But I'm also a very direct, assertive leader. And I think from a woman's perspective, being very direct and assertive can come across as like bossy or something, but like there's a way to be respectful and be kind about it while also being firm. Because at the end of the day, so I'm 28, but a lot of my associates are like 22, 23, 24. Some of them are a little bit older than me. I've got a wide range, but I think a lot of them, because we're so close in age, it can kind of feel like friends or buddies. Right. And I'm very firm at drawing the line of like, hey, I'm your boss, I'm your leader. We're also close in age, and like I want to support you, but like I'm not here to tell you everything that you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear so that you can get better. And I'm going to lock arms with you, and we're going to do it together. I'm not the type of leader to be like, hey, you need to do this. I'm like, let's do this together. Yeah. Like I will jump in the trenches with you, and we will do it together. We'll figure out a way, just to kind of give them that confidence. But I definitely think with Gen Z, they've had a rough time these past 3 years. I mean, if you think about kids that were in college and had to do the virtual college, and going into a job industry post-COVID, and just the expectations as well as the society that we live in now. So I don't have to work very hard, but I want to make a lot of money mindset. I'm all there with you. But I think there's a healthy balance with obviously like the baby boomer mindset of like you have to be like at a job for 30 years and like punch the clock and like work really, really hard. And then the mindset that the Gen Z has of like, I want to like obviously have a life outside of work. I also don't want to just like slave away, but I also want to make an honest living. Right. There's two different extremes, and I feel like you can have a little bit of both. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing with my team is that what I see with a lot of them is they come out, and I don't think they really understand what a sales role is until they've been in it for 6 months. Right. So like I think they think it's some of people that join a sales role think that, okay, this is a get rich quick role. It's not easy. And when you think about sales, for the most part, it takes you about 6 months to a year to really learn your craft, learn the company's service offerings, how you can differentiate yourself, get comfortable in your sales pitch. I teach a team of 15 for inside sales. So they're cold calling, they're prospecting. And so I think rejection is really hard as well. And so I think a lot of them, it hits them about the 4 to 6 month mark of like, hey, what I was doing up to this point, like, isn't amounting to like the dollar amount that I want to get to. And so I really am really honest and transparent with them on like what's needed, what I need to see from them, what that looks like in their day to day. Right. But I also learn a lot from my Gen Z people. I'm only 28, but they make me feel like I'm like 50 sometimes. That's funny. They keep me young, they keep me hip, they keep me in the know. And I care a lot about them. I care a lot about each of them individually, their personal and professional success. And I'm very proud of the work that they've put in and the work that they continue to put in. But sales is hard. It's not for everybody.
Right.
And so I think
especially the beginning, you have to jump into it and reach out some of the first clients, right?
Yeah, they reach out. There's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of being proactive. It's a lot of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So maximize the amount of shots that you make or take, so that you can get some return on investment there.
Right.
And I would say for anybody, like if you're starting a role anywhere, give it a year. Give it a year. Because by the time you get to that year, you're going to learn a lot. And I think if you're leaving under a year, it's going to be skills that you're going to have to learn in another job either way.
Right.
Obviously, it helps if the company is like a very understanding, there's a good culture, like you like the people that you work with.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, like, there's so many things that you can learn. And so I always tell my individuals, I'm like, hey, like if you don't feel like you're doing good right now, where were you 2 months ago? Are you better than where you were 2 months ago? You're doing something right. If you're not, let's reevaluate. What do we need to change? We might need to change the input to get a different output, and that's okay. I'll sit down with you and we'll map it out. It'll be individual to just you and what you think you're capable of on a day in and a day out. We'll take it day by day. And all I'm looking for is 10% week over week. And just kind of giving them that confidence, because when you're starting a new job and you're in sales, like there's really like this like fake confidence you have to build at first. And like if you're not used to rejection, it hurts. You're like, I don't want to do this every day.
Right.
But it's like, it's not personal.
Yeah.
I'm a sales operations manager, and salespeople call me all the time, and sometimes I mistakenly answer, and I shamefully will admit, I hang up on them or I say I'm not interested, and I never think about that person again, even though I'm in sales all the time.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's okay, I didn't create value in that moment. Let me go back to the drawing board and figure out what I can change to create value, and let me try again.
Right.
And the more that you try, the more resilient you get.
Yes.
The less it stings. And then at the end of the day, you're like, someone tells me no, I feel nothing inside. You think about all the successful people in the world, like Jeff Bezos with like Amazon.
Yeah.
Or like Nike. Like all of those people, it wasn't just like yes all the way up the chain to get to where they are. Like they had to go through so many no's, so many different like path changes and trajectories to finally get to where they are now. And so it's like, do the hard work now so that you can build those skills. And I welcome failure. I tell my team, I'm like, I want you to fail. I don't want you to be scared to take risks. I want you to fail, because every time that you fail, you learn something, and you can leverage it for the next time that you approach a problem like that.
So continuing with that question.
Yeah.
So if you're a recruiter, what is something that you're looking for from a new candidate? Give me 3 keywords. What is something that you're looking for from a new candidate?
So it's funny you ask that, because I am the hiring manager for anybody interviewing for Schneider to join our team as an entry-level sales associate, because they come to my team. So I do like 5 to 6 interviews a week with candidates.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So you must know what is the characteristic that you're looking for in a new candidate for your team, right?
Yes. So whenever I'm interviewing candidates, and this is for any job, they want to see your problem solving skills. I'm going to give you like some tips here.
Right.
So whenever you're ever answering interview questions, you want to answer with the SWOT method, or STAR method. I'm sorry, STAR.
Yeah, STAR method.
So situation, task, action, result. So if you're long-winded, these are really great because it gives you a formula. So if they ask you a situational question, they want to know specific. So if you're like, oh yeah, like if you give a general vague response of like, yeah, I've helped my company do X, Y, and Z, they're going to ask you, can you give me a specific time and what was the result? They'll want to know the situation, the task at hand, your action, and then what was the result and what you would learn from it. I'm looking for individuals that can give me clear examples of problem-solving situations.
Right.
What proactive action they took, what the result was, even if it wasn't the desired result, and what they learned from it. Because it's problem-solving skills. Yeah. I'm also looking for resiliency. So I'm looking for someone that like maybe they got harsh feedback from a leader before that they didn't agree with. How did they overcome that? How did that change their mindset going forward? You're in sales. You're going to get feedback you don't necessarily love, but it's out of the love of my heart that I'm like, hey, like I'm giving you tough love. Like you're not making as many calls as you should, or like you hung up right as they said no. I think you could have maybe asked a little bit more questions, to where I'm always going to try to challenge my associates a little bit. And so I'm looking for resiliency. I'm looking for problem solving skills. I'm looking for somebody that's a go-getter and a hustler, like somebody that is, so if someone's ever been in a sales position before or has ever been in a logistics role,
Right.
I'm always asking, what did you love about that role? Why did you leave that role? And then why are you wanting to either come back to logistics or come back to sales? Like, what's bringing you back? I'm also looking for someone that's like a very positive individual, has a lot of personality. I'll be honest,
That's
you
very
guys,
important.
when you're in an interview, regardless if that's the last place that you want to be, like just act excited, act happy, because your tone and your presence, like, it's a first impression. And so being just like excited to be there, even if it's the last place that you want to be, interviewing is not fun. We all know that. But just being excited, really showing your personality, being really personable. I think a lot of people also get really, really, really nervous for interviews.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's honestly like, to help you, it's two people just having a casual conversation. Imagine if you were like at dinner or like at coffee, like talking to someone. Like, I always like to give people that analogy because it can seem really intimidating, as well as like some interviewers are very cold, like you don't know how to read them. They do that on purpose. It's not personal, but like going in with that confidence and just being yourself, they really want to see you. And so I really look for personality. I gave you more than 3, but problem solving skills, someone that's a hustler, someone that is very personable, very outgoing, but then has also been able to show me effectiveness in other roles through situational examples, problem solving skills, that type of thing. But I ultimately also, I'm very candid with people in interviews. I'm like, this is a sales job. It's going to take you about a year to get really, really, really comfortable with it. Like, are you okay with getting told no a lot? Are you okay with, if this is the expectation, are you one to go over the expectation? Because in sales, it's completely up to you. What you put in is what you get out. So if you're not necessarily happy, if you've been given all the training, all the support from your leader, and the only thing that you're really responsible for is like the output, the motivation, and the proactiveness on your part, and you're not happy with where you're at, you gotta just kind of do an internal reflection. And there's been so many times in my sales journey to where I've had a conversation with my leader, and my leader's like, well, you could be doing more here. And I'm like, you know what? You're right, I could. And then I do more in that area, and what do you know? My numbers skyrocket. My numbers go up. I start seeing feedback, and it starts getting exciting again. So just constantly staying motivated and being proactive, like somebody that is like a go-getter, super on the ball. That's really what I look for. And I can tell in the interview.
I totally agree with that, especially when you're mentioning about personality and authenticity, because I also realize this whenever I have another interview, and the interview that I feel the most comfortable, that I be myself the most, I got that one. But the one that I just trying to be so much well prepared and trying to stick into the answer that I already prepared ahead, I feel like I'm somewhere just didn't get it at all. And now I think I understand why, because they need the personality and they need the authenticity from you. And I totally agree with you, especially when you're mentioning about
they're hiring you, so like want to see you. How will you fit into their company culture? What is your face-to-face interaction with other peers or customers going to be like? Like, they really do want to see you. I think there's a fine line between like being super personal and like being maybe not as professional. Still obviously be professional, but I hope that helps with like just like the nerves of interviewing. It's just two humans having a conversation, feeling each other out. I always like to tell people, just think about if you're grabbing coffee with somebody like a mutual friend that you met, and you're trying to inquire more about a job, because you're interviewing them too. Like, they're interviewing you, but like you're sitting there and you're like, is this a company that I want to work for based on what I'm hearing about the role, what I'm hearing about their company values and culture? So like, you're both interviewing each other. So have that confidence of like, it's not, the pressure is not all on you.
And I also believe that whenever we're trying to looking for a job, and then we applying for that job, when we're having the conversation with the interviewer, then I just heard one of the interviewer back then told me this thing, that, Christine, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people told us that IT is boring. But for me, after I'm working in IT, I didn't see it's boring at all, because I feel like no matter what kind of role or what kind of job that you're doing, there's always an aspect of it that is getting consistency, right? And you do it every single day, and then you're going to realize that, oh, it's all the same. And then people, some young generation will think, oh, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to jump into something else.
Yeah.
But it does show that when you jump into something else and it's make you more exciting, or after the few first month and you feel boring again. The thing here is about optimizing the outcome and trying to be creative and trying to make fun and trying to creating the energy and that attitude around us to make the job less boring. So I totally feel really relatable when you're sharing about being creative and how to maximize the outcome. Are you going to do better than what I offer? So I totally agree with that. I think that's a very great message, because it's not about personality or it's not about traits for itself, but it's also about growth mindset as well. The person with growth mindset, they also are trying to figure out things with a better outcome, with a more creative and innovative ideas, and trying to approach things in different ways.
It's about perspective too, just all about perspective. So if someone was like, IT is boring, like that's where I would challenge that, and I'd be like, it could seem boring, but like I'm learning new things every single day, the benefit that this has to a company, the big role that I play.
Yeah.
So like always perspective, it's how you look at it. Are you gonna look at the glass half empty or half full?
I agree with that. So I'm wondering, because you just shared that you're 28,
yes,
right?
I'm about to turn 29.
Oh my God. No, it's super cool, because the thing is you're going to have a lot to share for us when we were 20s. I'm 22, and I believe that the audience also in their early 20s. So if you could go back when you were in 20s, what is something that you wish that you knew earlier?
So I think whenever you're 20, in your 20s, early 20s, you graduate college, or maybe you're still in college and you're like, I get my first job, my first big girl, big guy job, whatever it might be. And you're like, I just want to go have fun. I just want to go have fun. I'm going to go out with my friends. And by all means, your 20s are the time to have fun. But I also think that there are pivotal things that I wish I would have known really, really, really early on. One, for example, is I wish I would have started a Roth IRA when I was 18.
Yeah.
Roth IRA, the younger you start it, it's money that you put into this fund, you invest it into the market, and then whenever you graduate, so like if I would have started at 18 and I would have invested in a Roth IRA, whenever I retired, I would have upwards of like $1 million in savings outside of 401k and other assets. And really, like, I really didn't understand finances. I really didn't care. I'll be completely honest. I didn't have savings, anything in my savings, until I was like 24, 25. I didn't start saving at all. You think about all the things, so like, it's good to have. And like, I'll be completely honest, growing up, I had to learn everything from scratch. So like, my mom was a single mom, and my mom kept the lights on, kept food on the table, but my mom was going to school, working 2 different jobs, and was raising 3 kids. So like, I really didn't get a lot of the life skills coaching that I wish I would have learned really on. I had to learn it either through trial and error, or learn from other people later on in life a little too late. So I would say, obviously, like, get your finances right, start budgeting, and you can still budget and go out and have fun, but like, don't blow your paycheck every single week.
Right.
So like, I think for me, like, just like understanding the principles of money really early, because the earlier you start, the less like you have to work as hard later on in life and play catch up, and it just sets you up for success ultimately. And so I wish that I would have, I guess, understood the importance of budgeting and saving earlier, because I was just worried about just like having fun with my friends, going and traveling, doing all that stuff, which I totally encourage you to do. But also just like make sure that you're also looking out for yourself, looking out for like if something happens, like if you get a flat tire or something like that, like you have money in the bank. Should you be working the current economy that we're in? Should you be working at a job and you get laid off and you don't know when you're going to have another job? Like you have a little bit of savings. And so I really wish that, and I learned it through trial and error, but I wish that I would have understood the importance of that really early on, as well as doing the hard work on yourself early. And that is from like a personality or like deep rooted, like whatever like background you come from, like working on yourself early, that is something that I did, but I didn't take it as seriously. And nobody's perfect, but like it helps you be a better friend. It helps you be, for me, a better wife to my husband. It helps me be a better coworker, a better peer, a better leader. And honestly, just like having people that like pour into you and mentor you and like shoot you straight, tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, surrounding yourself with those kind of people, people that are doing the things or are the people that you want to be and surrounding yourself with them. That's really important as well. I think that's 2. Yes, for 3.
3. One more.
3. Third thing I would say is based on career, don't think that you have to have everything figured out really early on. And don't be really hard on yourself that you don't have things figured out.
That's one of the biggest struggle with me as well.
Nobody has anything for everything figured out. I think honestly, if you are a good person and you work really hard, things will all pan out. And just like believing in your capabilities as well as who you are and the value that you bring, like centering yourself in that, like that's huge. And I think we let a lot of external factors kind of like weigh in on just like our self-confidence and all that stuff. And so I think just knowing the value that you bring and just working really, really, really hard. I think in today's world, like I think working really hard gets lost in translation because we've talked about it several times on here, living in an instantaneous society where we want things and we just don't want to work very hard for it. Right. There are exceptions to the rule, but like, unless like you've just had a super extremely blessed life, like everybody's got to play a part. Yeah. And so whatever that part is, like just understanding that like we got to work hard sometimes. Right. And your 20s is the best time to work hard. And I think that's contrary to a belief for a lot of people. Like my 20s are when I want to have fun, when I want to travel, when I want to go do all these things. And it's like, I don't want to work as hard. Like I want to just have fun. I think there's a healthy balance of both. Right. Because if you don't prioritize it in your 20s, you're going to have to do it in your 30s. It's not like it's like you push it off harder and it never comes back. Right. Like,
it's like, was like laid back because, you know, all of your peers and generation already moving toward very fast and you were like feeling laid back.
You think about people that like want to retire at like 35 or 40 and like that seems crazy, but like think about the work that those people do to make that happen. Right. They're workaholics. They are a different breed. They do things that normal people don't do because they're trying to achieve an outcome that is contrary to normal belief. So it's the same thing. It's like if you want to do something, you're going to have to do something that not everybody's doing in order to get there. Right. And so for the most part, like really just work hard, play hard. There's a healthy balance of both.
I agree. Work hard, play hard.
Yeah. And if you don't do it now, it's just going to prolong it later on. So I'd rather find a healthy balance now to where it's smooth sailing to the best of my ability. Obviously, there's factors that we can't control, but yeah.
Ariel, I know that you've been sharing a lot about great advices, and I'll be honest with you, I have a lot of questions to ask, but I believe that all of your answers already cover everything. And I think it's a great mindset that all the girls should have, including all the personality that you're just talking about, including all the great information about sales and operation. Thank you so much for everything. So before we're closing our episode today, do you have any other thing to share about?
I would just say that believe in yourself and know the value that you bring. Yeah. And be ready to roll up your sleeves and work hard. And any company that hires you is lucky to have you. And know the value that you're bringing into that company.
Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
I believe that Ariel just brings a lot of meaningful story and also a lot of different advices for all of you all. And I learned a lot from her. I would just be quiet and listen to her all the time because that's a lot of great value and information that you guys can take out of that. So thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So fun.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in our episode. Don't forget to click like, share, and subscribe for our YouTube channel. And thank you so much for supporting us through the times. See you next time.